Hello and good day. Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We are here because we are on a mission to inspire other families to enjoy camping adventures such as we have with our kids. Our guest today was the first of our non-YouTube celebrities feature. He's an amazing landscape photographer, loves to solo canoe in the backcountry, and ride fat tire bikes in the winter. Please welcome back Ron Bro, aka or alias, or what should we call him?
Well, alias is close to alien. So.
No. aka Swifty Paddler. Yay!
That works well.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, just wanted to let you know that we had some very good feedback on the first episode that we did with you. Somebody was like, yeah, it's so great to see him get some of the highlight that he deserves because his photos are so amazing.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. It's cool. We like feedback, period, but
oh yeah. Especially you two obviously put so much work into this. The preparation, the research, and going through it at the end of presumably a working day. So hats off to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the previous episode, I think the very ending of it was you mentioning an epic trip you took with the whole family and you toured a whole bunch of the United States from up here, like Ottawa. I've seen pictures of it now. Oh my goodness. So how the wicked stuff.
Yeah, it was an incredible trip. Just looking back through some of the photos, just to give you a taste of it. I mean, I had a lot of photos, so it was difficult to choose a small number, but brought back so many memories. It was a phenomenal family trip. So yeah, hopefully cool. I can give you a sense of it and inspire some other people to head out and explore. So it was a little bit daunting in what we had in mind, but boy, it worked out so well.
Okay, that perfect. How did you, what made you go, hey, this would be a cool trip? And then tell us what's behind. There must have been just monumental planning. It wasn't just like, ooh, just draw a line along the map and away we go. Yeah.
Well, my wife and I are actually fairly spontaneous, but this did require a certain amount of preparation for sure. It was actually 2 years before we left that we had the idea that it was something that we wanted to do. And I needed to work with my boss to work it out to come up with the plan, because ultimately I needed to have 2 months off, which
not an easy task.
Is a fairly substantial amount of time. So I actually banked vacation from a couple of years and the year that we went to make it all work out. And I remember the first conversation I had with my boss. He was somewhat incredulous and he didn't commit yes or no. So 3 or 4 times I'd go back into his office and we'd have that discussion until he gave me the green light that we could do it. So it was a big celebration. So what we ended up doing ultimately is taking off from Ontario. We live in Ottawa. We drove from Ottawa up towards Sault Ste. Marie. Actually, our first night camping, we only spent a couple of nights in Ontario, was in Chutes Provincial Park, which I've been back to several times. We went from there, we crossed into Michigan, and we went through a barrage of states. So I'll just read quickly here some of the ground that we covered, and then we could take it more one after the other. So from Chutes, we went to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore in Michigan. Then we went to Hayward, Wisconsin, Desmet, South Dakota, Badlands National Park in South Dakota, just amazing. Rapid City, South Dakota, where Mount Rushmore is located. Devil's Tower National Monument in Wyoming. And being a science fiction fan, that was a memorable moment for me. Billings, Montana, Yellowstone National Park, which is the world's first national park. A lot of interesting stuff there. I can almost have a whole podcast just about that. Missoula, Montana, Seattle, Washington, Long Beach, Washington, Nehalem State Park in Oregon. The coast of Oregon is absolutely spectacular. Redwood, California, Petaluma, California, which is just across the bay from San Francisco. So we did day trip into San Francisco from there. And we started heading back, Reno, Nevada, Salt Lake City, Utah, Green River, Montana, Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, Kansas City, Kansas. We got there just after a tornado. That worked out just well. Centerville, Indiana, Sarnia, Ontario, Oshawa, and then home. So all of that took 2 months. I don't remember exactly, but something in my brain tells me it was about 7,900 kilometers total that we did.
Did you split up the driving, or did you drive the entire time, Ron?
I'm kind of a drive-aholic. I love to drive. But we had, 2 young kids with us, and we needed to stop often. We did some long stretches, but never anything crazy, because there were places that we wanted to stop along the way. There were so many interesting things to see, and I was hauling a tent trailer, I should mention. So we had a Coleman Fairview tent trailer, which is one of the largest tent trailers.
I was going to say, when I saw that picture, it looked big, like that. Both of the bunks were quite large, and then it had a pop out on the side as well.
That's right. Yeah, pop out kitchen, 2 queens on the side, and we were pulling it with a Windstar minivan. And there's a bit of a story there. It was interesting how quickly you can adjust to having a small space. I remember one of the first things we found when we got back home after spending, of course, 2 months like that, although we did spend a couple of nights in hotels to do laundry and to live like normal people. But we were just shocked at how much room we had at home and how much really is wasted in a way, because we were comfortable in the trailer. We spent a lot of time outside, of course, doing things. So that's the 40,000 foot level. I've taken some notes on just some of the more interesting things that happened along the way. But if I don't want to just be rambling along here. If you have any questions.
No.
You said there was a bit of a story about the Windstar, I think, about the.
Yeah. So when we got to South Dakota, Rapid City, which is where Mount Rushmore is, famous work with all of the presidents. We were heading into town to pick up some groceries, went down this small little hill, and at the bottom of the hill is a stop sign. So I stopped and then, looked both ways, pressed on the gas to continue, and nothing happened. The engine was still going. Everything was working, except the transmission was not. So what happened is ultimately the transmission died right there. Luckily, we had already dropped the tent trailer at a campground, and we were just out going to get groceries. But I had to call a tow truck, and they had to take away our minivan. And when you're on a vacation and you have no idea how long it's going to take to get a transmission fixed, they called me up and said, basically, you need a completely new transmission. So I explained to them our situation, and they promised to, do it as fast as they could. They said it would be probably about 3 to 4 days. So I rented a car. We were able to kind of tour around the area and see some more than we had planned. Then on the day that it was supposed to be ready, I went into the shop, and I saw the minivan, lifted up on the hoist with pieces everywhere, like just pieces everywhere. And I had this sinking feeling at that point. It's like, oh no, it's never going to be ready. And the man said to me, it's not as bad as it looks. We're just waiting for one more part, and it'll be ready tomorrow. But he said, where have you been? It is so rusted. Do you like drive in a lake? And I said, well, I'm from Canada. I said, I'm not feeling that's just normal. So we ended up getting that transmission put back together, got it after the 4 days. And what was on my mind, especially, is where we were going from there was slowly up into the Rockies, or I shouldn't say the Rockies. Is it technically the Rockies there? But we had to cross over the Continental Divide. So pulling the tent trailer up those hills, all I would be thinking about was all of the pieces of transmission I saw all over the place. get put back together correctly. Like, was this going to hold? And it did. But that was a bit of a shock, something we didn't expect. Another funny thing that one of my daughters reminded me of, maybe part of it not so funny, backing up a bit, one of my daughters got a bug, some sort of stomach bug. So we had to stop for bathrooms fairly often while we were working through this. When we were in Yellowstone, there are all sorts of animals to see in Yellowstone, especially bison. You see the bison walking beside the road, you have to stop. There's wolves, grizzly bears. So it's very common as you're driving through Yellowstone to stop, see people stopped. You pull over to wonder what it is, to check it out. So we were out one day driving around and my daughter had to go to the bathroom suddenly. So I waited, I found a spot that was reasonable, pulled off to the side. She gets out, another car behind us sees us pulling over. They pull over. What are they looking at?
What did you guys
see?
And
then another car comes along and pulls over. My daughter's freaking out.
Oh, poor thing. She's on public display.
Some things like that become like a legend in the family of events that occurred.
Remember the time when all the people pulled over to watch you?
Exactly. Camping in Yellowstone was just phenomenal too. There are things that even as Canadians you've heard about for your most of your life, probably like Old Faithful, the geyser. Learning about how essentially the entire park in that region is sitting on what they call a caldera. So it's a super volcano, and they believe that the last time that it went off, it covered like the prairies in 4 feet of ash all the way out towards New York State. And they think it's slowly heading towards another event at some point in the future. So that could be a terrible thing to happen to our civilization. And as you're walking around and learning about this, you think, oh, should we be here?
Yep.
That's why you see all the water bubbling all the time. You see these hot pools. Pretty cool. And I think when I had sent you some of the pictures, Tim, you saw the canyon they call the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone.
Right. Yeah.
This river, the Yellowstone River running through it. Unbelievable colors, and a huge waterfall at one end. And you just stand there and you almost can't take it in. The color is just so spectacular.
Well, I looked at that picture. I thought at first, oh, he's put a painting in here. Oh, he's got another talent, really? Like, holy! And then I saw a little sort of smudge in the corner, and I assume it's like steam vapor or something. And I went,
yes,
okay, they wouldn't have painted that in. That's for real. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's almost like the real Grand Canyon. If you've been there, when you look at it, your eyes almost can't take it in. It's just so huge, and the colors are so unique. So that was quite an amazing event.
Yeah, I was telling Tim that I've been to Yellowstone once, but it was in a car with a 1.5-year-old, and there was a lineup like miles long to get in, and we were just like, ouch. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna stay here for all that time.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
We ended up staying at a number of KOAs along the way. It's not the sort of campground typically that I like to stay at the most, but they became popular because they had Wi-Fi. They had typically a pool and laundry facilities. So we stayed at a lot of different KOAs. Some of them were absolutely beautiful. Others at a different side of the kind of spectrum. One outside of Seattle that we stayed at, we joke, if you've ever seen the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, that's what we call that campground. You were like, you could reach out and touch the people on either side of you. There was a train yard that was behind it. There was a highway in front of it, and it was near an airport. So there's always something going on. We stayed there to just like sleep and then left as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun one.
Not very relaxing.
No. But there are some just incredible ones along the way. Like in Wyoming, we stayed at some state parks. Nehalem Bay in Oregon was just phenomenal on the beach. And in Oregon, they have these sea stacks, which are these geological formations out in the surf. I'm sure you would recognize them when you see them, because they show up in a lot of different movies and whatnot, and just very beautiful. Interesting, out that part of the country, they have people that bring their horses camping. So they'll have campsites that are set up for horses, and you see horses on the beach sometimes. So little things like that can be, you think you've done it all. It's a little bit different.
And no, somebody, I couldn't tell you whose show we were watching, probably Cool Quest or something. They were talking about shared trails. And it was like, shared with what? With horses. And we hate using those trails. What? Oh, okay, got it.
Well, yeah, it's funny here they don't let dogs on the beach, but they'll let horses on the beach.
Whatever. Yep.
Yeah. Well, luckily they were in a different section, so that made it all right.
Less looking at your feet while you're going.
Yeah, exactly. That would give a completely different smell to the adventure, I'm sure.
Yep.
When we were in Rapid City, South Dakota, as we had some more time to go exploring than we had planned, in addition to Mount Rushmore, we saw the Crazy Horse Memorial being built. And I don't know if you've heard about that, but Crazy Horse was a Native American warrior, and they are building what's going to be the second largest statue in the world, next to one in India. They started it in 1948, I believe. It's still got a long ways to go, but it's going to be huge. So it's interesting to see that, especially kind of juxtaposed against Mount Rushmore, and looking at that. And the whole concept, like especially with Mount Rushmore, it's something that you see in so many movies, you see in cartoons as kids growing up. It's been around forever. But when you actually stand there and look up at it, so many things strike you. The sense of the vision for someone to be able to do that, to create such realistic, portraits essentially in stone of people, is the one thing. But in the other, this is a natural environment that is permanently changed by doing that. If it's something that's not repeated in a lot of places, then that's one thing. But it's kind of, it gets different emotions. I think as you look at it and you get a sense, you see all the debris and everything from it. So if nothing else, it inspires some interesting conversations, just seeing some of these places too and getting a sense of them yourself.
Especially when you're passionate about trying to preserve the natural environment for the natural inhabitants of that environment.
Yeah, and Yellowstone, something completely the other end of the spectrum, where it's very wild, animals roaming all over the place. One of the things that actually made it quite challenging camping with a tent trailer in Yellowstone are the grizzly bears. They are grizzly bears all over, and there was a grizzly bear in our site the night before we camped there. And the rules were such that if you're in a tent trailer, you have to take anything out of the trailer that has touched food or water. You know how much food we had stored in that tent trailer for our trip?
Sure.
And the stove itself inside, you can take the stove out and cook with it outside, but typically these things, you don't take everything. You don't take all of your food out, all of your cutlery out, all of your glassware, your stove, everything. Every night we had to do that.
And put it where?
In our bin. They have these big metal bins in the campgrounds. So that was, I definitely understand why. When you look and you see the size of grizzly bears, you wouldn't want one, coming knocking on your canvas tent.
Getting eaten would suck. So
yes, definitely. But it's also hard. It makes it hard to camp there with a regular trailer. But it's so natural. Everything that you see there is very natural. They haven't really made any kind of drastic changes like that. And in some cases, they've even reintroduced animals. So it's
wolves, right?
Wolves, yes, absolutely. And I don't know about the bison, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had brought in bison over time as well. especially after almost, wiping them out in the last century or the century before, 1800s, 1900s.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So amazing to see one of these things that's practically the size of your car just driving by and looking at you. That was fun.
Yep. Nope.
When you
chase
hear
me.
stories of people on Instagram trying to pet them and take a selfie while they're petting that, and then pay the price for that kind of behavior.
We saw that all over the place. When you would stop, you would see people, unfortunately, they were typically of the male variety, get out of the car and get fairly close to try and take pictures because they look fairly docile until you invade their space. And, in visitor center, they show you videos of people where it doesn't work out so well for them, getting gored, trampled. We would occasionally see bulls fighting with each other, I guess, to establish dominance. And it's an impressive sight. And you would not want to be, trying to take that kind of risk just for a photograph. That's what long lenses are for.
Yeah. Well, the horns aren't decoration. I excuse me. I managed to get into Yellowstone for it was in the winter. We were skiing at Jackson
Nice.
Hole.
Yeah.
You know what? Very mixed feelings. It was very cool. Frozen waterfalls, and Old Faithful, and seeing bison and all that sort of, and the wicked, super cool tracked vehicles and stuff, and 4x4 vans, but not with tires on, with like these triangular tracks.
Yes.
on.
Yeah. I've seen one of those in Algonquin, actually.
Very cool. Sucking up all that snowmobile exhaust was terrible. I stinked like it for days afterwards. My lungs hurt. It's like, oh, we're polluting the crap out of it getting to see nature. I'm not so sure about that. But we saw one of those tracked vehicles. A whole back corner was crumpled in, and apparently somebody had pissed off a bison, and it boomied, I looked at it and went, yeah. Yeah, that would make you just a squashed bit of business, like holy crap. So
that would be the end of your vacation.
I think
at the
so.
very least.
I think so.
So for anybody thinking about doing these sorts of trips with your family, there were some things that we did that really helped a lot. Podcasts are popular now. At the time, because we went more than 10 years ago, it was really books on tape. There were a lot of books on tape that our kids loved to listen to. And once you get that going, something that's kind of spurring the imagination, and you're hooked in with it, that makes the miles pass quite easily. So that was something we did a lot. My wife got this one game. What was it called again? You basically you ask someone for different words, and all these words sort of at random, and then you end up reading a story where the word that a person gave is superimposed into the story.
Mad Libs, I think it's
Mad Libs.
Yeah.
That's it, exactly. So some of those were just very, very funny. Yeah. Depending upon what word you had given the person reading the story, you could have a lot of fun doing that, and spend hours stopping often. Bathroom breaks and food was always good. We went to so many museums. My wife especially likes the different museums, and those that allow kids to participate and play. So when we were in, I think it was Missoula, and also in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, Lincoln. I think it was Lincoln. Anyway, they had the type of kids museum that have clothes that you go and dress up in and step into a scene. And then, so we have pictures of the girls all dressed up, playing out like Little House on the Prairie in places, or being part of Abraham Lincoln's family. A lot of fun, a lot of things like that to do.
Nice.
So it sounds like the two of you have done some form of kind of road tripping.
Nope.
Nope. No, I was just asking Tim earlier, is this going to have to be a bucket list thing now?
We've never done anything. For me, my tripping that's not been, sort of backcountry, but certainly here in Ontario, I used to ski a lot. So that was my zen in the olden days. And I did a lot. I've skied all through BC, some spots in the US. Oh, most of Quebec. I've been over to France, Italy. That's my version.
Nice skiing locations, that's for sure.
Not bad. I have no complaints. I'm glad I got it in while I could do it. And even there, I wasn't really big on doing front country. I tended to jump over the ropes at the back, look both ways for the snow patrol, and just bugger out with my dad. My dad and I my son and I do the backcountry canoeing, and my dad and I were the backcountry skiing.
Oh, good.
So yeah.
Nice to have that kind of connection.
Yes, very much so. Well, we tend to be sort of family. It's a sort of a family thing for us. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you
I've done some traveling through the Southwest US, so certainly Grand Canyon and Arches. Did you guys go to Arches
on previous trip? Yeah, I think Utah is one of my favorite states. Been to Zion many times, Arches, Canyonlands.
Moab was one of my favorite places.
Yeah. And then there's the one with all of the hoodoos. What's that called? It's a sort of a day park. It's not the sort of park that you would go into and camp, but you walk around. You get all these beautiful colored hoodoos that are there. But anyway, it's just amazing in Utah. So much of the geology apparently used to be like underwater, and it's all compressed sand that's been raised like 4,000 feet, and you get these strange, like almost visions of Mars on the moon, or not the moon, visions of Mars, and the colors that you see there, and the rovers going around. If they wanted to test it out, going to Utah was the next best place. So
cool.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Yeah.
Other places on my trip briefly that were quite interesting, talking Utah, going through the Salt Lake City area, seeing the whole the Vatican equivalent for the Mormon faith is located there. So some pretty impressive buildings. There's this, I think, is it the Bonneville Salt Flats? I sent you the picture. It looks like snow on the ground for miles and miles and miles, and it's just salt from an evaporated lake, and they race cars across that. So it's pretty cool to stop there and pick up these pieces of salt, and just think it's just laying there out in the sun year after year.
That's where they do
the. I understand Salt Lake City itself, the water level has been going down in the Great Salt Lake for many years, and I think just recently they actually had the first increase in the water level because they were worried it was on its way to dying, becoming one of those other salt flat like places. So the world is changing all the time.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, what's is it Lake Mead? They're it's just sink, and they're finding boats from 50 years ago that they didn't even know were sitting in there. 50-gallon drums and bodies. It's cool.
Yeah, I've heard they found a lot of those. Kind of reminds me, as we were driving back, we went through parts of Nevada, including Reno, Nevada. It was the first time that we had been in Nevada, and every single establishment that you stopped at had some form of gaming. Typically, they were slot machines, and the noisy winning things all over. So wherever you went, there was some of that. I think one of the pictures I sent you is a famous sort of cowboy standing there.
Yep.
Big neon cowboy. It was interesting to see that. We camped in the desert there. One of the KOAs was actually just like a gravel parking lot. It wasn't a parking lot, but it was like that because that's all. There's no grass. There's nothing out there. Not the sort of place you typically go to camp, but it was a good place to stay passing through.
Yeah, I don't think I could I don't think I could handle all that noise all the time. Just
Oh, no.
screaming for your attention. It's like, no, 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 run away.
Yeah, well, we certainly get enough of that advertised in sports these days. Every sports channel I turn on, there's something about some form of supported gaming.
There's a lot.
Yes, that's something I'm not particularly thrilled with either.
Thank you, our current premier.
Yes, that's goof. He's just cashing in on everything, sell everything out. Who cares?
So those are kind of some of the big highlights from the trip. There were other things, going to U.S. Air Force Museum, seeing some incredible technology there was interesting. Going to the Little House on the Prairie, the actual location of it. It's getting a little bit dated now, but my kids grew up being in love with that. So that was interesting. And just a different geography all over, from the plains is so flat, and crossing, seeing the Mississippi, the Great Mississippi. And always, I think the best part about a road trip is you never exactly know what to expect. You have, points on a map, but it's all the little things you find along the way, the experiences that you are sharing together. My kids are now approaching their 30s, and they talk about the trip still. It comes up in conversation every once in a while. It was one of the best trips, I think, for everyone in the family. So definitely worth putting the effort into planning something like that. Hard to make it happen, but if you can, it'd be great. And I'd like to do another one with my wife. I'm trying to get her up to heading up to Yukon, Northwest Territories at some point. But she's less enthusiastic about going further north. So
my parents did that trip at one point with a trailer, and drove up through.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There's so much of Canada to see. I've visited most of it, but I would say generally on business. So unfortunately, I never got to see it in the depth that I would like, and not the places that I would really like. So one day.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad the kids had a good takeaway too. That was one of my sort of thoughts was, how much of it did they actually suck in, right?
Yeah.
If you don't mind my asking, when you're planning, you're going from here to here to here to here, what was that resource? Did you use the internet? Did you use a massive Rand McNally atlas? Wrote like the
yes,
road? Yeah.
It was that big road atlas, actually. We kind of had generally places that we wanted to go. So, Mount Rushmore, Yellowstone, Seattle, etc. So big ones. And then we would look what's along the way. And as you travel, you might get a sense that, oh, there's something up over there that we learned about at that last stop where we picked up some brochures. Let's go up there. As long as you have the general idea of where you're going, there's lots of opportunity to improvise. But those maps were especially helpful. In fact, I saved one of them that was the sort of big overview of the US. I looked for it, but I haven't been able to find it yet, because I made I highlighted everywhere we traveled.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. I think that's it. That's what I wanted to do, a story. I didn't want to do anything. I thought it would be great to have an episode to just have like a big story, a big trip, something different from what we tend to do here. So that was exactly it.
I was talking to my wife about this at supper time, actually. And, I was showing her your website, YouTube channel, and I was commenting, this is probably nothing like what people think of me today in terms of the trips that I'm doing. But she said, well, they are trying to encourage families to travel and to go camping, and that's exactly what this is. I said, oh, you're right. So maybe this will work out.
Yeah. Well, if you follow us at all, I have a real tendency to veer off to what you love to do, because that's what I love to do. And I sometimes I have to stop and go, okay, but that's not just families and stuff. Like, that's the stuff that I like to do. We need to pull back a little bit and try to broaden it out, make it be more accessible, make it be I don't know what the right term is, like a sexy trip like that, where you're seeing Old Faithful, where you're seeing the cowboy, the neon cowboy, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about making memories as far as we're concerned anyway. So however you do that, whether it's backcountry or front country or in a
Yeah,
trailer.
it's the memories for sure. And there's a certain window in a family's life where the kids are particularly receptive to that before they get pulled into different directions. And it's good to be aware of that and to potentially leverage that time if you're able to. Obviously, not everybody is able to, but it's quite a joy to be able to pull it off.
You bet. And watching I most of my stuff is digitized, so we have a smart screen in the kitchen, and it pulls up memories, and I get to see them when they were small and in pajamas and toasting marshmallows, and there you go, right? There you go.
Excellent. Yeah.
All right. I think we're up against that window. Do you want to do the outro? Cool.
Yeah. That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to Ron Bro, aka Swifty Paddler, for coming back. Please do check him out. He is on Facebook as Swifty Paddler Photo, and he's on Instagram as @SwiftyPaddler. And so we so appreciate him coming back and spending some time with us again. We'll talk to you again soon. We are from supergoodcamping.com, and I am Pamela.
I'm still Tim.
And we would love to talk to you again soon. Please do reach out to us. We are on all the social media, and you can email us at hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.